What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play, and I got a relatively quick video for you. If you are a subscriber of this channel, then you are very familiar with the FPVR and you're very familiar with the NBA 2K17 Legends roster, which is based on the FPVR. I'm breaking down basically the top 15 players according to my FPVR formula, which stands for the Franchise Player Value Rating. It is being updated as we speak to reflect the whole joint, but I haven't really taken the time in probably years to break down the formula and how it works and show how I, pretty much came to the top 15 for each player. Kind of just showed you guys who they were through the streams with Junior and I, but I'm going to kind of show this for pretty much the teams moving forward. I did a video for Atlanta Hawks and Boston Celtics, so I'm going to start at the Charlotte Hornets. So one of the first things to answer about the whole Charlotte Hornets, New Orleans Pelicans thing is, how am I handling that? Well, the way they did it is everything in Hornets history belongs to, or everything in Charlotte history, I should say, belongs currently to the Charlotte Hornets organization. So we know they were the Charlotte Bobcats, and then they got the Hornets name back. So back when they were the Charlotte Hornets, before they moved to New Orleans, all of that history in Charlotte now belongs to the current ownership group. So that's considered like the same organization. So I used the statistics and the history from that first run in Charlotte, as well as the Bobcats, as well as now what's going on with the current Charlotte Hornets. Everything that happened in New Orleans, which is the New Orleans Hornets and now the New Orleans Pelicans, and even I believe when they were OKC Hornets for I think they were like the New Orleans OKC Hornets for like a year, that all belongs to New Orleans. So in case you're looking at this and like, where's Chris Paul and so on and so forth, that's why he's not here. And maybe somebody like Jamal Mashburn as well. So let's talk about the FPVR, the formula. So essentially you see this here. I have the spreadsheet up. This is what I'm using to come up with a style. No, anyway, I had to say that. But this is what I'm using to kind of calculate the whole thing, right? So points per game is a raw statistic. So I take the average points per game for each player during their tenure with the organization. Rebounds per game is the same. Assists per game is the same. Steals per game, blocks per game, right? All that's raw numbers. Now, one question is, well, what about the players who had statistics or, predate when they were keeping up with blocks and steals, which is, I think, like the 74, 75 or 75, 76 season. I got to look back just to confirm, but that's there in the 70s when they first started keeping up with that statistic. What I did to balance it out is players that played before that time, they get an average of 1 block, 1 steal. It kind of ends up balancing out because there's some awards that are just now available that weren't available before. Also, you got I give points for playoff appearances, conference finals, NBA finals, where earlier in basketball history, it was easier to make playoffs and conference finals and NBA finals because there were less teams. So it all kind of ends up balancing out, and the top 15 that I'm getting is pretty consistent. So playoff appearances is raw. One number. If you're in the playoffs, every year that the players spent on the roster and that team made the playoffs, even if they weren't on the team at the end of the season and weren't on the playoff roster, I still give them credit because they were on the team. They contributed to something that happened with that team's record, which was how they qualified for the playoffs. Conference finals is worth 1.5 points. As you can see here, the Charlotte Hornets team has made it to a conference final, so that's why there's nothing there. NBA finals, they haven't made that, but if they had, you get 2 points for making an NBA, for being on the NBA finals team. The rings, if you win a championship, you get three points for every ring that you got. MVP award is worth 10 points. So you win an MVP, it's 10. All-star appearances is 5 points. Defensive Player of the Year is 3 points. Six-man award is 3 points. If you are the all-defensive first team, that is 2 points. All-defensive second team is 1 point. All-defensive third team is a half a point. Now, the All NBA first team is 8 points. All NBA second team is 5 points. All NBA third team is 3 points. A Finals MVP is worth just as much as a league MVP on the FPVR. It's 10 points. Rookie of the Year is worth 3 points. All-Star Game MVP is worth a half of point. And every single season that you spent on that roster or on with that organization is worth 3 points. So the overall objective of the FPVR is to say which players were the most valuable to their organization. So this collection of statistics is designed to show the value. How valuable was Larry Johnson to the Charlotte Hornets? How valuable was Kendall Gill? And I judge their value by all of these accomplishments that are a mixture of individual and team statistics and team accomplishments, right? So I wrote this article about this formula back in like 2010 for Bleacher Report, and I'm updating it currently now, and I'll be publishing it on Forbes. So let's see. Larry Johnson is number 1 for the Charlotte Hornets. Now, this is a relatively low FPVR, right? 69.1 is the highest you'll see, and I'm going to show you what the FPVR is for like the Boston Celtics. So you'll see, just to give you a perspective of how low Larry Johnson has for him to be the leader for the Hornets. Look at this for the Celtics. Bill Russell has the highest FPVR for the Celtics, and it's 350.9. Now, I don't have all his stuff filled in here because I had calculated it in a previous spreadsheet, and I just didn't transfer it over. But that just shows you Larry Johnson at a 69.1 wouldn't even be anywhere close to the top 15 for the Celtics. Obviously, why is that? Because the Celtics have accomplished far more as an organization than the Hornets have. They've had more All-Stars, more championships, more MVPs, more everything. So that gives you an example of how that works. So, but back to this. Glenn Rice actually is number 2. He is I believe, the highest points per game scorer in Charlotte history. Gerald Wallace is actually 3rd from his time with the Bobcats. I don't have his stuff filled in there, but he is 3rd. Lonzo Mourning is 4th. You see, Glenn Rice, I believe, has had the most All-Star appearances of any Hornet. He's had 3. He also is one of only 2 Hornets to finish on an All-NBA second team or higher. None of them have ever been All-NBA first team. They've only had 1 player, I believe, to finish in All-Defense, and that was Anthony Mason. I think I'm right on this. I have to double check and look at something real quick just to make sure that I'm right. I don't believe, and if I'm not, I'll have to change this real quick, but and it will just bump up his score. But I'm wondering, it feels weird. Lonzo Mourning didn't have any all-defensive teams selections, and sometimes I go back and I check this just to make sure I'm on the money here. He didn't have any all-defensive team selections while he was with the Hornets, is what this is saying. So let me just make sure. All-defensive first team, he's only ever been on 2 all-defensive teams, and the first one was in 98-99, and that is definitely Miami Heat. So, yeah, I was right about that. I like to double-check my stuff every once in a while. So, yeah, so that's actually kind of crazy. They've only had 1 all-defensive selection, I think, in history. If they've had another all-defensive selection, they didn't come up. It wasn't the player who got it still didn't crack the top 15 in the FPVR. So I'd have to look back to see if that's the case. But Muggsy Bogues is there. Kemba Walker is there, and obviously he's still rising. He is the highest. Actually, I think he's the only active member of the organization that is in the top 15 right now. Obviously, you got people like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Cody Zeller, Nick Batum, who are still can potentially move up on the list. But as of right now, it's only about Kemba Walker. Emeka Okafor for his Bobcat days, Anthony Mason, Al Jefferson, David Wesley, Baron Davis is there. Raymond Felton, I think I said, I don't know if I made him mention that he wasn't there. Elden Campbell, which is really kind of crazy, 13.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, 1.8 blocks per game, you know. Man, it's crazy. Lonzo Mourning averaged 3.2 blocks per game during his time with the Hornets, but he never made an all defensive team. That's like kind of crazy, right? Is that not insane? But it is. You look at people like Dell Curry and Muggsy Bogues, you might be like, how are they there? Well, look at the seasons. They spent 10 seasons with the organization. That's a lot. And Dell Curry was on 4 playoff teams. Him and David Wesley's like, I think that's probably the most. I'd have to look at some of the other guys, but I think that's probably the most. Like I said, Raymond Felton, Elden Campbell, and Kendall Gill rounds out the 15. So all 15 of these guys are on my NBA 2K17 Charlotte Hornets roster, all-time roster. So there is the deal. The next episode of this, the whole FPVR reveal that I'm doing, I'd like doing it this way a little bit better. I'm able to explain some stuff and kind of go a little bit deeper into some stuff. I'm able to do that a little bit better going this route. So we're going to do the Chicago Bulls next. And so hopefully this was enlightening or entertaining in some way, or at least informative for somebody. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless. Peace.